Hello everybody, welcome to Raising Multilinguals Live. My name is Tetsu Yang from Ask Tetsu.
And I'm Rita Rosenbach from multilingualparenting.com. Welcome everyone.
And I'm Ute Lima-Garibold from Ute's International Lounge. And we have our guest today, Dr. Dina Mehmedbegovic-Smith. Hello, Dina, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be contributing to your initiative.
Thank you very much. Let me briefly share an outline about today's episode. So after a short introduction of our guest, we'll follow an interview with her for about 20 minutes. Then Rita will share the questions of the participants who are asking them in the live session on Facebook. And then we will have a nice surprise guest at the end, so please stay with us until the end. So let me please introduce Dina. Dr. Dina Mehmedbegovic-Smith is a lecturer on a range of courses up to doctoral level at the UCL Institute of Education. She was on the Institute of Education team developing the National English as an Additional Language Workforce Strategy and new programs addressing the needs of bilingual children. She was also, among others, Deputy Director of the London Education Research Unit. Her research focuses on attitudes to bilingualism and multilingualism, minority languages, and positioning of languages in relation to domination, political power, and language disappearance. She's currently developing interdisciplinary work aimed at providing a broader evidence base for advocating cognitive benefits of bilingualism in education and lifelong learning. And she is the director of Healthy Linguistic Diet. So, Dina, today's topic is how is a healthy linguistic diet beneficial for our children? Now, when we talk about diet, we think about, I don't know, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, or 2 liters of water are very healthy, or the Mediterranean diet. Can you please tell us about what the roots are of the healthy linguistic diet?
Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. I would like to tell you actually about a moment in my research in a London school where I consider the healthy linguistic diet really had its first day in terms of my thinking. I was doing research in Pimlico School in London, which was to do with attitudes to bilingualism, attitudes to minority languages, but also the fact that many children who were identified as bilingual were underachieving. And one such group was children who spoke Bengali at home and their families used Bengali or in fact Sylheti. And in this group, we were talking about different reasons for underachievement. And one of these boys who was only 14 years old, he said, "Miss, we underachieve because we speak 2 languages." And this really reflects the kind of deficit view of bilingualism that we've been battling in our schools for many decades now. But another boy who was in the same group responded to him and he said, "That is not true. I read in a scientific journal that bilingualism is good for your brain." And for me, that was what we call a critical incident moment, where I realized that even as an educator who was always encouraging teachers and children to use their languages for homework, for extracurricular activities, that I never actually thought about structured opportunities to talk to children about benefits of bilingualism. And therefore we had children who were 14 years old who had to find their own means and scientific journals to read to find out if bilingualism was good for them or not. That day I felt that as educators we needed to do something to put on the map in school in terms of classroom time, in terms of structured teaching and learning, that we need to be able to communicate to children, bilingual and multilingual and monolingual, what the benefits of using and learning another language are, and to really inspire everybody to not only maintain the languages they have at home, but also to be keen to learn other languages. Because as you know, in England, where obviously English is the main language, lots of children don't feel a need to learn other languages because obviously English is the global language currently. And on the other hand, in terms of my research to do with language hierarchies, where I know that in everyday life, parents and teachers are battling against perceptions that certain languages are valued and desirable to have and learn, but other languages are seen as of low value, and children are often embarrassed to be even seen to be using them. That we really needed a winning card, which was going to show everybody involved, all the stakeholders, children, parents, educators, school leaders, that all languages have value. And this is where cognitive science comes in, and all the research that's been done with bilingual children, bilingual adults, which has plenty of evidence to support our argument that bilingualism is beneficial to children in terms of achieving across the curriculum, and it's beneficial in terms of developing and enhancing our cognitive competencies.
Yes. So you already shared a little bit about the vision for implementing the healthy linguistic diet now in schools and families, so to say.
Yes. Through my research, I've been involved with parents who say that children simply don't want to respond in their home language. They feel embarrassed about it. Sometimes they say, "Mom, when you pick me up in school, don't speak our language." So parents also need to be armed and equipped with all these research evidence that will provide conversation at home, where they will be able to make children aware that there are other benefits to using these languages, not just perceptions of what's seen to be kind of a desirable language to have, like Spanish or French or currently Mandarin. And also another anecdote I would like to share with you. I was recently, last year, I was doing some talks in Australia in schools there, and I witnessed a conversation of two boys. There were 15, 16-old-year boys who were talking about what they were going to have for lunch. And they were discussing different choices, and they were talking about proteins and carbohydrates and what's good for you and what's not good for you. And, you know, efforts have been invested into raising awareness to get children to be able to analyze their food intake at such sophisticated level. And I felt immediately I would like to witness a conversation like this about languages, about, you know, how many languages you use a day, how that's good for you and why that is good for you. And we can do that. In England, we have a Healthy School Initiative, which is about promoting healthy lifestyles, healthy eating, and healthy linguistic diet. My vision is that healthy linguistic diet should be an integral part of healthy school initiatives.
Yes. So this healthy linguistic diet, now this is another question that now pops up in my mind, would be a combination of different languages then, or the openness towards different languages?
Healthy linguistic diet is really something that's integral to the school life in terms of structured teaching and learning, in terms of extracurricular activities, in terms of the landscape that you see. You know, when you go into a school, you will see posters to do with healthy eating. I would like to see posters which are about cognitive benefits of bilingualism. And, you know, doing special projects, doing simple initiatives to start with. For example, an initiative that was done in a London school called Language of the Month. Very simple, where children who speak different languages will do on intranet a short lesson for everybody to tell their peers and the teachers where this language is spoken, what family of languages it belongs to teach them simple sentences, words in that language, and to have a display about the culture. So for the whole month, you would have this lesson available on school intranet, and you would have displays around the school to really celebrate and raise awareness on that language. This school won a European award for doing this initiative, and they provided access to their intranet lessons to everybody interested. And when they were recently repairing their website, the head teacher was sent many emails from different parts of the world, New Zealand, Alaska, teachers saying, where's your language of the month? We are using your lessons and we rely on them. So that's an example how something as simple as that can become really, you know, a landmark project for schools, something that schools will be recognized by, and that school can share with wider professional communities and with other educators. So that's just an example, because I want people to understand that there are simple steps you can use to start practicing healthy linguistic diet in your home, in your school, and this will simply grow from there. But of course, you have to be looking for opportunities where you can slot in episodes of using other languages and and learning about other languages.
So Dina, may I ask a little question about your anecdote? It's really highly interesting when that example with the proteins with the teenagers talking to each other. I totally agree. It's this mindset. If the kids they take pride in their languages and they talk about it as if, you know, it's something that's very good for them, who they can sort of you know, support each other in that development. So these are 15, 16-year-olds you were talking about. So I'm thinking kids at that age have more of a rational way of thinking about languages. But this shame that you talked about earlier, you know, don't talk to me in this language in front of my friends kind of thing. Is there an age, a typical age where that starts? I'm thinking more around maybe 8, 9, 10-year-olds.
You would be surprised. My colleagues at King's College did a project with parents who were from bilingual backgrounds, and one Chinese mother reported that her 4-year-old child comes home and says to her, "Don't speak to me in Chinese, Chinese is stupid." 4 years old.
Wow.
So where is this child bringing these messages from?
Yes.
And you see the battle of parents here. They are in the intimacy of their own homes, their own families. These messages come in, and how can they, you know, fight against them in a way that's constructive, in a way that will inspire children and not feel to children that, you know, this is hard work. This is the mother tongue school they need to get up for on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, and they would rather play football than go to a complementary school. So it's how to really put language use and language learning on the map of family life, where you know, children will really be keen to do it. And again, I have a very good example there. I spent a week with an international school in Atlanta, and I met governors there, parents, teachers, children, and 2 parents who were English speakers, but they really wanted their children to be fluent in Spanish and Mandarin, and obviously Mandarin was the real challenge. They actually decided to only have TV in Mandarin at home. So if children wanted to watch cartoons, if they wanted to watch TV, they had to do it in Mandarin. So, you know, this is kind of a really very interesting example. And they also had a tutor who was helping children do their maths also in Mandarin. So these are very kind of resourceful parents who are thinking from very early on, okay, how can I make sure that language learning is part of our family life, and what kind of tricks I can use here to get children to be more exposed to other languages and to use them.
Absolutely. The incentive is really good.
Yes, I have a question. You were talking now about parents who are English and want their children to learn Mandarin. What about the more minoritized languages, or those who are a minority in the place where the families live? In your studies, you have studied refugees and immigrants, and I see this a little bit across all kind of families and family settings, that after a while that you've spent living abroad, the family language or the home languages, however you want to call them, become less important in many families, especially when the children are schooled in another language. So what would you recommend, or what is your advice for these families? What can the parents do to help their children not to feel that they have to hide their home languages, or in the same moment also, what can the parents do not to feel like alienated because their own language maybe becomes partially or completely lost during their stay abroad?
Okay, well, I'll stay with this school in Atlanta because I want to give you an interesting example from there as well. This school does several bilingual pathways, so you can study the whole curriculum in 2 languages. And one of these pathways is English-Spanish pathway, and obviously Spanish speakers there are in minority situation. Now, the situation you have there, and I haven't found that anywhere else, that 2 communities will have very different perception about the same language at the same point in history. So you have Spanish parents who do not want their children to attend English-Spanish pathway. And you have English-speaking parents who desperately want their children to learn Spanish, and they send their children to English-Spanish pathway. So what you have here, it's a very complex situation where, in fact, parents are trying to run away from that Latino identity, and they don't want to be connected with, Spanish-speaking community, and they want their children to focus on acquiring excellent English and passing exams in English. Whereas the English-speaking parents realize that Spanish is a global language, and there'll be more and more need for Spanish in the future. And obviously in the future, when jobs are advertised which require Spanish speakers in the US, it's going to be the children who went to the pathway, the bilingual pathway, and who had qualifications to show who will get these jobs, not the Spanish background children who use Spanish at home all their lives but didn't go to this bilingual pathway. So that's a very complex, very interesting situation there. And, it's burdened by so many years of kind of deficit identity that Spanish speakers have been battling against. And obviously there is no, quick cure for that. But in England, where you have, communities where more mixed communities and bigger linguistic diversity, we have 233 languages spoken by children in London schools. I think there is a big role that educators can play in terms of bringing in all these languages into the classroom, into the schools, making them part of landscape in terms of asking children to do homework in their first languages, to providing reference books, providing dictionaries. Now there's so much online. So really just encouraging children to use their languages within structured teaching and learning. And, children need to hear this from their teachers and need to be encouraged. And I was myself in a situation where I was encouraging children to do homework in English and Bengali, and children are first of all suspicious and surprised, and they would say, "Miss, but you can't read Bengali. Why are you asking us to do this?" And then when you tell them, "Well, I want to see your script. I want you to teach me how your writing is different." And then they themselves will say, "Miss, we can put that on the wall, so when other children come who can't speak English, they can read in Bengali." So they're very quick to develop these kind of understandings and awareness. I've read in other people's studies that children kind of become themselves the gatekeepers, and they keep saying, no Bengali here. This is an English school. We do Bengali now, Bengali school. So we have to find ways of communicating these messages and making space for other languages in our teaching and learning.
Yes, I want to come back to the comment you made about like the Spanish families not appreciating their own language. I'm sure this will not be the case in all families. I certainly get in touch with a lot of Spanish speakers in the US who want to pass on their languages. But what would your message be to these parents, and how can we convince the parents that actually the home language is good? Because you're absolutely right. We have a history of speaking down their home languages and emphasizing the school languages. How can we need parents to be part of this, so it can't all be done at school. So what do you recommend there, Dina?
I think currently parents are really the group of stakeholders that's the kind of left in vacuum. Nobody's really paying attention to, informing parents, to raising awareness amongst parents in terms of benefits of bilingualism. For example, when you go to a health center, when you go to a surgery, you'll find plenty of leaflets to tell you as a parent about hygiene, about healthy eating, about active lifestyles. You will not find a single leaflet to say, if you are bilingual family, multilingual family, here is some important information you need to know. I had parents attending my seminars for doctoral students, and they would tell me, can I please come to your seminar? I'm a bilingual parent and I don't really know what to do. So we need initiatives like yours, which will really target parents and provide this information and raise awareness amongst parents. But also, I use research as a vehicle for change. And through the process of research, I engage with different stakeholders, with parents, with head teachers, with politicians. And the way I structure my methodology, I'm using genuine children's voices, voices of researchers, voices of politicians, to bring them to my participants through the process of research and say, are you aware of this? What do you think about that? And I've had some excellent successes in doing my research that way, because where I interviewed politicians and where they've seen quotes from students saying, Bengali has no value, my language only matters within my own community. I had actually, politicians saying, well, no child should feel like this about their language. What are we doing wrong in our education? What do we need to change? So the change needs to happen throughout the different forums and different layers of policy making and practice shaping, and research has a big role to play in that.
Yes, that's all very important. And I think especially when we talk about multilingual families and we have these different languages that are spoken in the family and in the community, there and also in some schools, there is still this thought about the ideal of being native-like in the languages that you are speaking or that you are fostering. Shouldn't we step back from this ideal of being native-like as the ultimate goal of any foreign language learning? What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I'm really glad you asked this question, because through Healthy Linguistic Diet, we promote the concept of plurilingualism as it's been defined and shaped by the European Commission. And the key point in the concept of plurilingualism is that we need to understand that we can only ever be partial users of any language we use. And this includes also our mother tongue. So that also means that we are lifelong language learners. We are always developing our language skills and learning about all languages that use. And when I talk to my students about this, I always tell them, well, if you've ever been in a situation to translate a solicitor's letter or a doctor's letter, this is the register that you don't use in your everyday life. You will have to reach for a dictionary to be able to translate that document. This demonstrates very clearly that we can only have a partial knowledge of any language we use. And in terms of plurilingual competencies, developing plurilingual competencies, Healthy Linguistic Diet offers a lot in terms of inviting educators to structure opportunities where children can learn about the languages that their friends speak, that are used in homes, in the community where they live. So it's not only focusing on being able to use a language in communication, but it's being able to know about languages, to know about linguistic diversity, to understand how important linguistic diversity is to us as species, and to be aware that 90% of languages are endangered. And on TV we can see excellent program about endangered biological species, and we should, but I am yet to see a program about an endangered language. Nobody's making programs about this. Nobody beyond the circles of linguists is talking about this. But we actually are at a situation where linguists are estimating that around 90% of languages are actually endangered.
Yes, and this makes me think about a situation that we observe here in Europe, and I think also a bit across the whole world, where there is, when it comes to choose what subjects to have at GCSE, SAT, whatever you're studying, more and more students are not so prone of choosing languages. And in one of your articles, you were talking about the limited resources model that should be rather, maybe you can explain a little bit about this, that should rather be transformed into an added value model. Would you like to talk about this a moment?
Well, England has a particular challenge here because, young people do not see learning other languages as a key skill. This is again to do with the power of English as a global language. And this is why I've been arguing for positioning language learning in a completely different way, which is part of our well-being and kind of thinking about future. So I've been talking to people who are at the Ministry of Health department who are interested in promoting languages as one of the ways to put off dementia, and for 3 to 5 years. And we know what an enormous challenge currently is caring for dementia patients, and what huge savings a society could make if we were able to equip people who were in danger of getting dementia to actually put it by 3 to 5 years. So I think, like plurilingualism has kind of positioned language learning in a different way, which has made the ideal of native speaker completely redundant in that kind of thinking. Also, Healthy Linguistic Diet is positioning language learning as part of well-being, as part of cognitive enhancement, not any longer as something that we need to look at. Is this going to be important in the economic sense? Is this language important for employability? And what is the market value of this language? We need to get away from positioning of languages where children are looking at the market value of a particular language, because we will always have few winners and many losers in terms of languages, and children will perceive many languages not to have much value in terms of their future careers, in terms of their employability.
So that's very important. I wish this would happen more. When talking about healthy linguistic diet, yes, we were talking about the diet, and we were talking maybe about ingredients when we think about a diet. What would be habits or behaviors that you would recommend to parents that their children should be developing, or where parents can help their children to develop throughout childhood that supports?
Okay. Yeah. When I go into schools, we've got here Healthy School Initiative, which basically promotes that every child should eat 5 portions of fresh fruit and vegetables a day. And I'm always trying to piggyback on this initiative, because this comes from the government. Everybody has to do it. You know, it's well researched how important it is. So I'm saying to teachers, and this can be also used at home in families, parents can do that. Look for 5 episodes of language use during the day. So you can read a story to this child bilingually. You can be looking at bilingual text. You can ask a child to count something in another language, so you're practicing counting there. You can teach a song in another language, or you can do some cooking with a child, and you will be naming ingredients in this different language and talking about the process of cooking in this different language. So integrating it into activities that you are doing, you know, where possible, making it fun and enjoyable, but making it part of everyday life. So, you know, when you think about having a foreign language lesson that lasts an hour, and you are looking at different, you know, grammatical features and verbs, and when you are thinking about, okay, 5 times a day, 10-15 minutes, some fun language use, a bit of learning, you know, something that the child will remember the next day, and you can build on that. So, you know, it feels far more doable, and schools which have done this, I've got on my website a case study of a school in Dublin where the head teacher has introduced leaving opportunities and space for children to use other languages simply on the worksheet, where they're meant to write sentence in English. They are left 2 other lines to say, okay, if you can write this in Italian or Malay or in Gaelic, please do that. And children will grab these opportunities, and parents will help them, and these things will start happening. So without any pressure, without, you know, kind of having immediately high expectations, but encouraging and providing spaces, providing opportunities.
That are excellent suggestions. I try to write them down, but I'm happy that we have recorded. Yes, I think, Rita, do we have some questions, or do you have a question from the audience?
We have a great comment from Nodrog Elechim. I hope I pronounce your name right, Nodrog. And he comments about the parents' attitude to their children's languages. And he says it would help if there were more supportive educational structures in place with regard to language learning. Unfortunately, in British politics and educational decisions, linguistics are far down the pecking order, which is exactly what you said, Dina, as well. So and further, Nodrog says that he finds very often that parents are their own worst enemies. They expect their children to become fluent in all their languages without seeing their child and asking them about how they feel. It is almost as if they think they have failed if their children cannot produce language to perfection. So again, just like we said, we need to get away from the notion of a language has to be perfection, because as Nodrog says, this then rubs off onto the children, makes them insecure and sometimes feel like failures. And that is very true. So Nodrok's question is then, how do we get governments who implement education and teacher training to make this part of the system?
Well, this is very much part of my work, and I've had the opportunity to present my research at the House of Lords a couple of times. So we are very aware that we need to target politicians and policymakers, and this is why I actually, in one of my studies, key professionals and policymakers were the participants. And I think, again, you know, presenting how much savings we can actually make if we equip our population to put off dementia later on in life. And, you know, when we presented this research at the House of Lords, one of the participants there said, well, parents and children are not really interested in dementia. You know, that's what happens much later in life. But again, I think that's wrong. You know, you do not build a healthy lifestyle once you have health issues, and you know, when a third of the population is fighting obesity. You have to start raising this awareness and building healthy lifestyles from early age. And everybody has in family grandparents or somebody else who is of that age, who is maybe currently going through dementia, being in a nursing home, and so on. And you know, earlier we start talking to children about it, and making sure that they understand how the investment in their health while they are young is so important for the quality of life in their adulthood and later. You know, I think we are going to be more successful in what the government wants to see, and that's savings in terms of, you know, hospital care, in terms of medications, in terms of National Health Service. But also you then have school leaders, and they will ask, you know, what's in there for us? Well, we need to present them the research that a child who is using his or her first language is going to achieve better across the curriculum. They will especially do well in maths. So every school leader should be interested in this. And then, you know, when you look at schools where children are given some support to take exams in their first languages, again, they perform really well on the league tables. So there are lots of benefits there and research evidence that we can present to have these, you know, key players interested, and to try and make sure that it becomes part of the national policy.
Thank you very much. That's fantastic. We have one more question from Josie. I think that might be our last question for today. And Josie, welcome Josie. And her question is, how do you encourage predominantly monolingual families to understand the benefits of languages, to knowing more than one language?
Again, through research evidence, through explaining and showing, you know, the evidence that we have in terms of cognitive enhancement. And the evidence is truly inspiring when you look at the physical changes, when you look at the cognitive functions, and, you know, like we are developing awareness how important it is to exercise regularly, to run, to go to the gym. In the same way, we need to think about the well-being of our brain and to think about building these reserves that will then help us function better and have better quality of life. So again, you know, parents who feel, well, you know, English is a global language, my child can work in so many countries without speaking another language. Why do I need to work hard and push him through a very hard exam when he can have other choices? I think, again, the positioning of language learning as part of our well-being and part of our cognitive enhancement then has a completely different place when it comes to parents thinking about the well-being of their child.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dina. Thank you for sharing with us what is important for children, for ourselves, to maintain and foster oral languages throughout childhood and beyond in a healthy way. And you said something before, yes, thinking about the older age when we are adults and beyond. And we have a little surprise here for the participants. I think we have someone waiting in the waiting room who will join us and who will tell us a little bit more, who's working with you on the Healthy Linguistic Diet, Dina. And tell us about what the Healthy Linguistic Diet has to offer to people in adulthood and advanced age.
Are we ready for our special guest? All right.
Surprise, surprise.
Let's bring him on.
No,
Yeah, that's really different.
There you go. There you go.
There we are.
okay.
Well, welcome again.
Okay, fantastic. So now, because it was,
Daddy, look at your mouth.
yeah, you see.
All right.
Can you listen? Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Very clear. And now we have
Fantastic.
two
Fantastic.
for
Okay,
one.
thank you very much, Alba. So my daughter helped me.
All right.
Yeah, he advised me. Okay, so it was great pleasure to listen to Dina. I mean, I still remember the day when we met first time many years ago in Brussels, and she was speaking exactly what she was telling today about health linguistic diet. And suddenly I realized how incredibly close our way of thinking was, and even the metaphors that we used, coming from two completely different areas. Because I work here, I always say I'm an aging scientist in double sense of the word. So not just aging myself, but working about aging. I worked many years with dementia patients, with stroke, with different type of
What about
neurodegenerative
Mommy?
diseases. Yeah, Mommy is a psychologist as well. She was working also with Parkinson's disease, very, very similar diseases. So we are coming very much from the, so to
But
say,
I don't
other.
think you think very together.
No, but and a few years ago, I published a paper together with colleagues from India showing that people who speak more than one language develop dementia 4 to 5 years later than monolinguals.
What's dementia?
Oh, that's a disease when people have a really very bad memory, even worse than that. And basically, and you remember, I once took you to a talk in Glasgow when I was speaking to patients with dementia who have these problems with memory. And much later, it's 4 to 5 years, it was a result which was first observed in Canada and then confirmed by our big study in India. And then people started asking me, so how can it be? Is it really surprising? And I say, well, it's not really that surprising because maybe using more than one language, learning languages and using languages, so not just knowing but really using, is very much part of the kind of mental health, of brain health. And the two metaphors I was using there was always coming from medicine, from my background as I do, was basically one was physical exercise and the other was diet. So I was trying to explain that the point, for instance, of a good diet is not to have just, you know, eating only apples or only celery and so on, is to have the, you know, a range of different things. And that's how I was perceiving all the activity coming from language learning. So it's a kind of diet which includes being exposed to different sounds, producing different sounds, different meanings, different grammatical forms, different ways of social interaction that are very much with the language and so on. So it was a metaphor that I was using, so to say, trying to explain this effect. And when I was here, you know, when I was listening to the talk of Dina in Brussels, I realized, well, in fact, it's very, very close to what she was just telling you from her experience, so to say, with school children. And that's how we came together, wrote this paper in a journal, which is basically I very much recommend. I mean, I don't know whether we will be sending the Twitter links. I can send a link to the paper, Healthy Linguistic Diet, in a journal called Languages, Policy and Society. And that's how we came to the website, and more and more different activities. I mean, other papers that we published since then together. So from this point of view, we have a really, what I find fascinating, getting together of perspectives of a healthy development and a healthy aging. And the main messages are basically the same.
Yes. Thank you very much, Thomas. So when I can try to take the gist out of all this, it's very, very difficult. But I think you say it in one of your articles that you've written together, that the diet is more than the different ingredients or the sum of the ingredients. It is more about the combination. So it's finding
exactly,
the right...
and another important point, and I think that's very much which, you know, our view, I mean, Dina's and mine have in common, is you don't really need to be perfect. I think that's a very, very important message. People think that, you know, it's worth learning a language only if you are really absolutely perfect, kind of native speaker like, and so on. Now, you don't usually say that you are only picking up tennis because you want to win Wimbledon, or that you are, you know, picking up playing saxophone because you want to get into Carnegie Hall. I mean, in a way, we are doing a lot of things, realizing we might not reach, so to say, the level of perfection. But when it comes to languages, there's this kind of idea that, you know, anything that is below the 100% perfection is somehow really worthless. And here comes again the idea of food. So it's not about the kind of perfection, it's about having a balance, about having the variety. So let's say using a couple of languages, but then having some knowledge of others. That is, so to say, this kind of, I would say, healthy surrounding, which would be a very, very healthy environment, both for children, but also for elderly.
Yes. Thank you, Thomas. I would like to wrap it up slowly because I see I have the watch in front of me. Dina, would you have some closing remarks on the healthy linguistic diet and the early years?
Okay, well, first of all, I would like to thank our colleagues at European Commission who brought Thomas and me together. They actually facilitated us meeting in Brussels, and really us working together has made a healthy linguistic diet so much more powerful. And you know, we've been invited to the Parliament to present and to talk to the Minister of Health, and we hope that healthy linguistic diet will develop further. Currently, it's being rolled out in Italy, in Florence, as a regional strategy, and the European Commission has endorsed it as part of its report reviewing language teaching. So we are very thrilled about that. Yes. And as Thomas says, on our website, there are case studies, there are blogs, there are articles. So parents, educators can go on our website and look at these different contributions that we have produced over a few years, and that we've invited other people to also contribute. So if you know, one of you or somebody who is watching this program has a good strategy, good examples of how they're doing, you know, something that fits under the healthy linguistic diet umbrella, we would love to hear from them. And we are inviting people to write blogs for us and to provide case studies, which we put on our webpage with case studies.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much. Yes, Dina, we are going to share this also in the description of the video so that everyone knows where to find you and how to get in contact with you and with Thomas. So, Tetsu.
Yes. All right. So we are coming to the near the end of this session, but before that, I would like to ask everyone who's watching right now or on the recordings to please give us some feedback on our sessions, how you would like to see us develop going forward. So I will put in a link in the comments section later, and I'll pin it so you guys can find that link. Okay. So now what we'll do is go into a little preview for next week. I will put up a little banner for Ute to tell you about our next guest.
Yes, next guest that we have the pleasure to have with us today already. So our next guest on Tuesday, 18th of August is Dr. Thomas Bak. He's a lecturer and clinical researcher fellow at University of Edinburgh. And we will be talking about bilingualism and the brain, focusing on how our brain and mind are designed to process different languages across the lifetime. We will share what areas of the brain are involved and interconnected and talk about how the ability to learning more languages helps the brain to cope better. Considering brain diseases, we have mentioned it before, dementia and also strokes. So please save the date, 18th of August, 1 p.m. in New York, 6 p.m. London, and 7 p.m. Paris time.
All right. Well, thank you very much for attending this session. Thank you to our guests, both guests, tying together the Healthy Linguistics Diet. Next week we'll have, in 2 weeks, we'll have Thomas back again, talk more about the medical side, about the brain. So thank you very much, everybody. And we'll talk to you in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.